Are comics good right now?
No.
Depending on who you
Oh,
ask, depending on who you ask, you will get a different answer. Some people will say no because they think all the comics suck. Other people will say yes because they think all the comics are great. Well, one of the best metrics for the health of an industry is the money that's in it, how much money that industry is generating. And we know that while comics do sell a lot and the totality of the industry is doing well, the sales of floppies are not great at the current moment in time. But that doesn't mean it has to stay that way because sometimes things get small and they contract, industries contract, and then they blow up again. You know, for you wrestling fans, wrestling is bigger than it's been in decades. And there were people asking this very same question about that industry just 10 years ago. So we are here to ask, will the comic book industry ever have a boom period again? Will there ever be a resurgence in interest in comics to where millions and millions and millions more people begin to read them than are reading them right now? And if not, why not?
I don't think it'll ever hit the peak. It's a niche format and it's an expensive format, and those two things are blockers to its reach. I think we've talked in the past about the stigma around comics and how they can appear to be childish, low art, blocker. Uh, we've had discussions on compact comics and how you can buy two floppies for the same price of that entire story of a DC book, another blocker. So I think there are things within the economy of comics that, excluding the talent, because there's so much of that in the industry, is are blockers to people showing interest. Um, and I think that is why they probably won't ever have a boom period again. There'll be peaks, there'll be troughs, but it won't ever. That slope is flat at the moment.
Do you think that quality has anything to do with what you just said, Marco?
No, it could be good, but if it's pricey, how do you get it out to mass audiences to appreciate? There's a reason why museums are smaller venues uh, for group activity than uh, you know online, let's say webtoons or something.
I'm I'm kind of with Marco, but maybe not in the same boat. We're going to the same destination, but we're not in the same boat. For me, like I don't think there will be a boom, at least currently. I don't see it happening anytime soon because people's ability to pay for stuff that is so niche and low, you get less bang for your buck with comics in terms of time investment. So I
Low
think,
yield.
yeah, low yield, perfect. Um, it is increasingly less and less and less people that can actually pay for comics and get them. So it's hard to say we're going to hit a boom if the boom is based on sales. Creative boom, possibly, but a sales boom, especially with stuff like the 90s when we were just overprinting stuff like crazy. Quality maybe wasn't there for some people, but sales were going crazy. Almost killed the industry. But it's hard. It's hard. I don't think uh, there will be another boom in terms of sales. I don't think we're at a doom, but I just think that's just the nature of it being a print hobby, a print thing at this point. Can it evolve? Sure. I think the actual idea of what comics are can evolve. We've talked about that. Um, can we even expand upon that and really think of comics as what the characters are? Is comics superheroes? Is comics Spider Man? Can that have a boom in the future? Sure. But that might be outside of comic books. It's I hate to be like a doomsayer, but I don't know if comic books as a print medium is going to have another huge boom.
And just to piggyback off that, I would also clarify like Western big tube superhero comics because
Yeah.
under that purview, Tyler, something like webtoons is hugely more popular from a consumption standpoint, but not necessarily a sales standpoint. Um, and that's part of the medium, right? That has had a boom, whereas the comics that we'll review and talk about have not.
Hmm. I think it will.
Hell yeah.
Okay, boomer.
I like, I mean, I just, I think it'll come back around again. How, like, we've been in a recession for the past 20 years. Like, shit sucks. Nobody can afford them, but it'll come around again. And then when, we get another Walking Dead, you know, people will find it. We've got a new slate of DC films on the horizon. They'll come, same way, I guess it's hard to say same way they did for Marvel because maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But the image boom of 2012 was massive. And it was a whole. The thing was so big it made the big two a big three.
Would you consider
It'll come.
the image stuff though? Was that a creative boom, or was it a boom for the industry? It's an image boom for sure.
Both.
Yeah, I'd say both on that because you get the introduction. New 52's right around there. Like there was creative and sales pushing some of those things, and my entry was image, and that bled into other stuff.
The worst people Red Saga.
It's not behind me, I swear.
I really love the optimism that Cale brought forth, and I wish I shared it. I think that there's a large part of me that wants to say that there will be another boom in comics because I want that to be the case. And I can see, I can see certain scenarios where that could happen. I just feel like it's not it's more likely for certain series to blow up than it is for the entire industry to see a large shift in readership in the positive. Like, yeah, there could like Tyler said, there could be a new Walking Dead that pops and a book, or maybe it was Cale that said that, I'm sorry, that pops and gets huge. And that would be great for that series. But I don't know that I see that translating into those people then just being like activated in comics forevermore. Like, even if you had a book that, let's say, sold 2 million copies, which I think, didn't Berserker sell 1 million copies? I think
Yeah,
it
that
did.
book that we all read.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
Yo, hey, I'd still pull it.
Did you really?
It was
Yeah,
good.
I haven't
Yeah.
read it in a
Alright.
while, but I still pull
That
it.
was a bit. I didn't know if you guys actually read it. Okay.
But 1 million people bought it, right? If even 10% of those people were new to comics, how many of those people spread out and then went on to go and find more books and stayed integrated in the industry? And the size of the industry that we have, if 10% of the people that read Berserker did that, that would actually be a lot of people for us. But even that didn't happen. What gives me hope is stuff like what James Gunn has done, where he's actually talked about specific comic books. When he has promoted some of these movies that are going to be coming out, he's mentioned Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and then that book is up on the screen. And we know how those sales, factored in for those books. We need to see people stick around and say, okay, cool, I'm going to continue to read floppies, because make no mistake, this industry booms or busts based on the sales of floppies. That is it.
Hmm.
That is it. You could sell out of Supergirl every month. Every comic book shop could sell out of Supergirl every month, and it wouldn't matter unless people were buying floppies.
I'd also point out there is a, a new generation coming, of people who were kids when, this first round of Marvel stuff happened. Um, People who read, Raina Telgemeier and Dogman and Captain Underpants, when they were young. And that's not to say, those explosive books, who I think any one of those books dwarfs, uh, you know, the bestseller of any big two book.
Not even close.
But that's not to say that all of that will translate, but with the accompaniment of this slate, this massive slate of MCU films, that's historic at this point. More superhero media, more comic book themed and related media than ever before. I think if not a boom, you know, people will come.
I think people would care more. And to that point, Cale, my first thought went to Iman Vellani, who,
Yeah.
super fan in
Yeah.
the for the movies, super fan in the movies, and to the extent where she's made a connection to the comics now, right? She's started writing. She's and maybe with that force and that kind of connection, there is a more direct translation. And we've talked about whether or not movies translate into sales, but when James Gunn puts out that he's going to be doing films for the DC pieces, and a certain number of books sell out, like those are more direct translations. And maybe it's a matter of building a set of people who value comics more and more than it is who reach out and buy them. Ultimately, that will be the goal and what the comics are live and die by. But if you get a subset of people to care and advocate, maybe that's this portion, and then down the line you get the sales of the next generation of showing value.
I mean, it just requires the companies to have synchronization between media. Like, imagine, like, people are sitting through Marvel credits. Why not throw a credit in there for the book that it was based on? You know, like, it's literally like you don't even need to pay anyone extra to put that in there. And maybe what James Gunn is doing, once those movies are out, we'll have data to back up that theory. Right now, he's just a lot of tweets, but those tweets are at least selling out Amazon books. So maybe once the movies are out and seeing what DC decides to do, maybe trying to piggyback what he's been doing, in the production of these movies and, hyping up the books that they're based on. If that can transfer over, then we could have a boom, because I would say superhero movies are still going to be huge. They're going to be the summer blockbusters every year at this point. And if they could find that bridge to connect it to the comics, there could be a boom. But I don't have much faith in it.
So I'm going to say this. I don't think that the comic book industry not experiencing another boom period is a problem. I don't think that that is a bad thing in the immediate. Now, we understand that a lot of the industry is propped up by people who are aging and will pass on, and that if there are no new readers to replace them, then that is an issue. However, on our Discord server, we are constantly being joined by people who say that they are brand new to comics.
Yeah.
So what I say is that naturally, through the things that exist in the world that promote superheroes, we will get enough people reading comics, new readers, to keep this thing going. But for a boom to happen, people would be able to have to overlook too many things that are in the way, that are not really ever going to be changing. And I think that's okay. I think that that is perfectly fine as long as people can be paid to make comics and the lights can stay on at these companies and they can continue to farm ideas for films. Everybody can be happy. And we can just enjoy what we love. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Great. Let us know what you think in the comments. Do you think that the comic book industry will ever have a boom period again? And if it can't, is that okay? Hit us up in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, like the video if you liked it. We'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.